Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this. Hello, welcome to UID Me. It's Lee Cunningham here, and it's very quiet in the workshop today, and that's because it's Sunday. So shh. It's very nice looking out over the valley. That's I don't know if you can see that, it's Rosendale Valley there. You see the motorway in the distance. It's quite misty today over the valley. It's really nice. But even though it's quiet in the workshop, there is plenty to do. There's lots of post-its knocking around, there's to-do lists on computers, so it never really stops here. And obviously your inquiries as well that come in from people like yourselves. And if you've ever had the need to inquire or make an inquiry, you'll realise that we really turn that around fast. There's no waiting 24 hours and 48 hours with us. We don't make any promises, but we do tend to reply very, very quickly, certainly within a few hours anyway. Yesterday morning, I was talking to a colleague or an associate, and he said, "How did you get going with UID Me?" And I said, it was almost by accident. Back in 2012, after coming out of a full-time job, which I really wasn't keen on, and it wasn't keen on me either. I really wasn't good at it. Prior to that, I'd worked at British Telecom for 13 years, 14 years or so. I took early release from them to start my own company, which did well. I just didn't quite like what I was doing. So I ended up kind of being a man in a van. So suffice to say, 18 months later, I was back in employment, didn't like that job. And then in 2012, I'd been working on this little device in my spare time, which was a safety reflector for cyclists and for runners. It was a 360 degrees safety reflector, which moved, which therefore caught the light really, really well. And my friend and I took that to an exhibition in Birmingham, and we sold out. It was a real success, and so that was. I came home on the Sunday night from the cycling show at the NEC in Birmingham. Came home Sunday night, and I discussed it with my wife, and she said, "Look, Lee, if you think you can make a go of it, then you got to do it." So I went in on the Monday morning, and I just said, "I'm done." I had to work another month in the job that I didn't like, so you can imagine I was itching to get out by the time, I think that was October time, so I left at the end of October. Now this product that I had, which was called Movabright, we still have the Movabright brand now, but it's much more than just a safety reflector. We put it on garments and what have you. And we also do safety bibs for mobility chairs and wheelchair users as well, using this Movabright application. And so in the early days back then, it obviously, while sales kind of gradually increased, we needed something, something to supplement the sales. And I came across, because I was dealing with reflectives at the time, I came across this product, which is a sports ID wristband made by a company called Vital ID. I ordered one, and I was really impressed with it when I received it, because it's no secret the Vital ID brand is a really simple, lightweight, robust ID wristband. And the sports one, the beauty of this was that it has this reflective band. I don't know if you can see that, maybe not, but it has this reflective band, which obviously, as you've got it around your wrist, and as you're running, it kind of like, you know, that movement attracts the car headlights and what have you. And it's got your emergency ID inside. So should you have an accident or an emergency whilst you're out running or cycling or walking or hiking or whatever, then that information is really helpful to a paramedic or a first responder. And it was whilst on the Vital ID website that I noticed that they did this range of medical ID products. So I contacted Gary, the chief operating officer, one of the directors of the company, and inquired about, you know, importing Vital ID for us to retail, and that did, you know, I couldn't have imagined how well that would do. It's the sales of that totally surpassed the sales of Mova Bright or the Sports ID wristband. So it was really, you know, it was a good thing to do. But it was quite by accident. Medical ID was really not my area at the time. However, I did have two family members at the time that had chronic medical conditions. One of them was like a diabetes, neurological, and blindness as well. And the other was cystic fibrosis and diabetes. So obviously, you know, I have this stock of hundreds of ID wristbands, medical ID wristbands, and these two family members who were you know, in need, I felt, of carrying some kind of emergency ID contact information, because up until that point they hadn't carried anything. So I did what you would expect to do. I kitted them out with a medical ID wristband each, and a permanent pen and the cards that go with it. And I said, here we go, like, you know, let's get you wearing one of these, and then wear it all the time, and then obviously you're kind of like covered, if you like, in an emergency. At the time, the person with cystic fibrosis wasn't married, so her family was her next of kin was, you know, close family, and I thought that was a good idea. Now she turned around to me and said, if you think I can fit all my medications and allergies on that small card, which comes as part of the wristband, I don't think you'll be able to see it on there. But there's space for, you know, a couple of your name, emergency contact 1 and 2, and then there's 2 lines for medications and allergies. You can use the back of the card as well. The back of the card is completely blank. And the card, it's, if you can see that, it kind of folds down into 3, and then the card slides into a discrete pocket which is on the inside of the wristband. The medical ID, but I should have shown you this really because it's not in the packaging, but the medical ID wristband is just the same, and it opens out, and then behind the Velcro section it's basically, it's a discrete pocket. So, and she said, you know, I'm not going to even begin to be able to fit all the medications I take, because she was on this list of about 25 medications a day, and these included pancreatic enzymes, antibiotics, medications to, you know, kind of calm her stomach down because of all the medications. There was also medication for diabetes that she took. There was vitamin supplements. There was amino acids that she took, all kinds of things every day, like numerous times a day. And then every so often she'd be on intravenous antibiotics, and she could do these at home, and to avoid her having to go in hospital, because there was a risk of cross infection with a hospital stay. So there's a lot of medication, and certainly it wasn't going to fit on the Vital ID standard card. Now don't get me wrong, I love the Vital ID brand. I've always been an advocate for it. I make a number of purchases, you know, every few weeks. But it just simply, for some medical conditions, the product just doesn't, you know, it doesn't stack up. And there are plenty of people with chronic conditions who need to take a whole range of daily medications. There are also conditions where maybe the number of medications that the people need to take are fewer and therefore would fit on the cards. However, there may be with those conditions supplementary information which is really vital in an emergency that you just wouldn't fit on the card. So let me give you an example. So you may get someone with autism or ADHD who doesn't really take much in the way of medication, or certainly if they do, it could be fitted on the card. But they may have, say, a crisis plan, especially as a young child. It might be, we've had clients on the UIDME system that have a crisis plan. So it might say young children might like to watch videos of sharks or dolphins or something that keep them really, you know, in a calm state. They may be non-verbal, they may be very young. So if they were to go missing or they became upset or distressed, then putting a video of sharks or dolphins or something, or some aquatic type theme, may be really helpful to them until a parent or guardian can get there. So that's the kind of information which can be quite lengthy and you may not fit on one of these simple cards. So that's when, at the same time, I was doing an IT degree and I'd come across NFC. Now, just bear with me 1 second. There we go, I'm back. I just wanted to show you what the NFC looks like. But at the time, I was dabbling with NFC at the time. You need a coffee on a Sunday morning, don't you? I was dabbling with NFC at the time, and so what I needed to do was find an NFC product that I could somehow fit into this wristband, or the medical wristband, because if I could do that, then I would be able to load the NFC up with, redirect it to a web page. So if someone used an NFC device to read the tag, then that would just automatically take the device, open up a browser and take the device to a certain page on the internet. So I managed to find an NFC tags, and this is what they look like. You can see the very, very paper thin tag. And if, I don't know where my phone is. Oh, I'm using it to record. I'm using my phone to record today. We're not using the camera. So, but if you run the phone over the tag, then it obviously, you know, it alerts and it tells the phone to do something. So that would needed to be a certain size to fit on the back of the card, so it could still fold up, and obviously tested that with family members first, and it was brilliant. They loved it, and so did the paramedics that treated the girl with cystic fibrosis, and it all worked. So it was, the next thing was then offering it out to other customers, so marketing the product on Amazon, obviously letting Gary at Vital ID know what we're doing, and that was really worked well. However, the main problem was that Apple products, the iPhones, the newer iPhones, don't allow people to use their NFC unless it's for the Apple payment system. So that really was, we still do the NFC, but with Apple products, because so many people have got them and it's really kind of, you know, mass market product, we needed something else. So we now include 3 ways on our products, on the wristbands anyway, of getting people's information. And that's, firstly, is the 12-digit unique ID code, which all products come with. Then there's also a QR code printed on the silver labels that go on the back of the ID cards. And then some of our products still have NFC as well. So since 2012, all that grew and it evolved. Now, the main thing that helped, I think, the UID system to grow and to evolve was really it was talking to customers, and customers giving ideas and suggestions and things that maybe mistakes that happened and things that went wrong. So eventually, in the early days, I remember I was literally updating people's profiles. So if someone's medications changed, I was the guy who had to do it. They filled the form in online, and I updated it, and it was very clunky and it was very slow, and it was painstaking because obviously they they really needed a facility to keep it updated themselves. But was it worth the investment for us to have a company to develop the UID system from the ground up again? In hindsight, yes, of course it was, yeah. But then it really took off when we added the facility of alerting contacts in the event of an emergency. Because in an emergency, you want your nearest and dearest or your carer or your emergency contacts to know as soon as possible, as quickly as possible. You don't want any kind of delay. We are comforted by the presence of paramedics and first responders and emergency medical staff, of course. They're the ones that treat us. But we are, I think, deeply comforted by the knowledge that those that love us and care about us are with us. So how long does it take for someone to learn that a family member or someone that they really care about has been involved in an emergency? Well, that varies. It varies from maybe minutes if you're wearing something like the Vital ID wristband and you've got your emergency contacts telephone number on there. You would think it would be minutes, and most of the time it would be. However, if you go back on UID YouTube channel, you'll find there's a story there of a young lady called Larice, and Larice spent, I think it's 18 hours in a hospital bed where her nearest and dearest, her emergency contacts, didn't know where she was. I mean, that is an incredible amount of time, and it must have been deeply distressing for her, to realise that nobody knew, nobody close to her knew. So when Larice got in touch with us and asked us, is there anything more that we could do? We considered email, but then we realised, really, when we thought about it, we thought, well, not everybody really checks their email that often. I check mine like as it comes in, but then I run a busy couple of busy businesses. So, but not everyone does, So text was the way that things were going when we introduced it a few years ago. SMS all organisations are using SMS now. To remind you your PIN numbers, passwords, account verification, happening everywhere. So we kind of jumped on that, and we used. There's two types of SMS. They go down to two priorities, and we pay for the higher kind of priorities. So when we incorporated that, we sat with the developers, worked on a system. There were some mistakes, in the early days. It wasn't great, but then eventually when we got it right and we launched, that was a superb service for people, and that we then separated it out onto different plans, gold plan, platinum plan, and we added a whole bunch of other features on the platinum plan, such as the ability to upload do not resuscitate kind of documentation, or what's called advanced decisions, advanced statements. So for people that really want to ensure that if they are unconscious and unable to communicate in the event of an emergency, I mean that's a serious emergency, isn't it? That their wishes by law will be taken into account, you know, and if they've got an advanced decision that's signed by themselves and their GP, and it's uploaded onto the UID system, then it's indomitable, really. You know, you can't contest that. You know, so that was another thing. And then more recently, we've looked at the SMS, and there's some recent demonstrations, just the past couple of weeks, where you can see how fast it is for a first responder to access somebody's profile, add their own details, so that the SMS that's sent to the emergency contacts also contains the first responder's contact details, which is super, super good because it creates a bridge from emergency contact to first responder. I mean, if you receive an emergency alert to say that your family member or your child's been located, or your family member's had an emergency, wouldn't it be more helpful then to know who's got them, who's found them, who's treating them, who's looking after them, you know, and what's their number, and then you can contact them and get the absolute latest. So, for example, if that's a medical emergency, you can, and I should also say that there's a caveat here that it's not absolutely necessary for, you know, for someone who's treating a patient that's carrying an ID. It's not absolutely necessary for them to put their contact details in. It's optional. So, but if they do, then, you know, you'd be on the phone straight away to them saying what's happened, how serious is it, are they going to a hospital, which one is it, where are you taking them, and all this information that you would normally, as an emergency contact, maybe have to wait hours for, maybe someone knocking at the door. Because I don't know about you, but whenever I ring someone's mobile telephone number, 9 times out of 10 these days, I don't get an answer. I do not get an answer. And you know they've got the mobile because people are checking the mobiles all the time. But they, you know, for whatever reason, we're busy, and people just don't do calls anymore. It's all WhatsApp, Twitter, social media. So calls are less used. So the SMS alerts, the emergency alerts that flags up on the screen, although that's like a push communication, it's a one-way communication. It, at least if a first responder leaves their number, the contact details, then that emergency contact isn't left in the lurch. They can immediately make contact and say what's happening, you know, where they're going, how serious is it, where's my child, you know, I'll meet you at customer services, you know, bring my child. So that's where we're at the moment. You see the whiteboard behind me here in this workshop. We've got 2 whiteboards here, well 3 if you count the little calendar there, and then in the other workshop we have 2, and one of them is dedicated to customer suggestion. It's just full of customer suggestion, and we then meet with our developers once every month, and we'll sit down and we'll look at what can we include in the UID system. So we always say to customers, you know, have you got any suggestions? Let us know if you think it could be better, because we will take it seriously. And that's how from 2012, or shortly after 2012